My name is Rich, and this is Rich Talks Records, episode 19, which means we're 18 and over. And you know what that means. Alright. Just got done with the, it was like a fucking month ago, but the Epic Rolling Stones trilogy, and there are more of you now, so welcome. It's awesome. Hello. I think as of today, we're at 67 subscribers, and that is amazing. That is amazing to me. I couldn't get 67 people in a room, like, if I tried. So the fact that somewhere out there, like, that's amazing to me. So I appreciate, I appreciate every view and every subscriber. It's really, really, really cool. So, anyway, but today, to paraphrase the great Chris Broad, we are going to be going from subs to unsubs, because we will be talking about an album that is not terribly well regarded. This is going to be the first of a two-parter. Of course, if you are a longtime viewer, you know that one of the stated goals of this channel is to eventually review every album that Iggy Pop ever made. And we are going to do the Stooges reunion albums. Not terribly loved, not terribly commented upon very often. And the first one, has some rough going, doesn't have a good reputation. Unfortunately, I think that impacted the reputation of the second one, which, when we get to that, when I record that, who knows when I'll record that, but I'll spoil it now. I'm a really big fan of that album. But this first one, 2007's The Weirdness, I come neither to bury nor praise The Weirdness, but to simply assess my incredibly ambivalent feelings about this record. This album is a study in ambivalence for me, and hopefully is not a totally insufferable video as a result. But this is the CD I would have gotten. I mean, I got this like right away when it came out, of course, but also maybe, I don't know, like 2-3 months after it came out, I got this. Yeah. So, Vinyl Community, huh? Check that out. So, and I actually, I will say with the silver inlay, I feel that the stark minimal aesthetic of the album packaging works far better with vinyl, because I feel as an object you get to contemplate it a little bit more. But we'll be getting into all of that. But one of the other reasons we'll be going from subs to unsubs is in some of my growing list of greatest non-hits, like vehemently defending the Family Man album, my passionate love of Love's Revelation, among others. I will be probably taking a lot of shots at the Underground's answer to Rick Rubin, Steve Albini. So there's a lot. It's very complicated, and there's a lot of ambivalence, a lot of complication, a lot of weirdness. Oh, so slick. So anyway, I'm gonna bookend this video with the two times in a room with Steve, two little vignettes at the beginning and end. So that'll be the framing device of this. The 2 times in a room with Steve. The first, there was an Evens show. Remember the Evens? So went to see the Evens, and I will say, some of the, just on a side note, some of the indie legends or punk rock legends who have reputations for being kind of jerks, I have to say 2 of them were incredibly nice to me. So I don't know. So Ian MacKaye was really, really nice to me that night. And maybe like a year before, I had seen Calvin Johnson at a church performing just a cappella. And Calvin Johnson was really nice to me. I'd heard terrible stories about what he was like. No, he was fucking amazing. So anyway, went to saw the Even show, and there was a weird buzz in the crowd that that Iggy was in, that the Stooges were in town, and that they were recording, they were recording their album, and with Steve, and that the Stones were also touring, and that there was going to be some like meeting of the minds of Steve and Ian and Iggy and Mick and Keith, and it was all going to come together. And people were really, in this like ultra too cool for school indie crowd, and men who were very serious about their hoodies. I remember kind of finding it funny how into the Rolling Stones they were, because I was like, if this was 10 years ago, you'd be obliterated for even. So I thought that was a funny thing, that there was this buzz in the air, and you could hear conversations about. So anyway, I got to go talk to Ian, and he was real cool, and I've never forgotten that. And right behind me was Steve. There he was. Now, I have a weird long history with him. I was a very big Nirvana fan, and back in the old days, 30 years ago, and I did not like Steve's. I did not like the things that he had to say about Nirvana. I didn't like all the REM with a fuzz box. I thought he was a pompous ass, basically. And I also really didn't like his the article that he had written downing the Smashing Pumpkins and Liz Phair and Urge Overkill. I was super not into that. And so, my little group of friends in high school, we were all huge, big Liz Phair fans too, but huge Pumpkins fans, huge. And years later, I met somebody who was really tight in Steve's circle, who casually threw out a thing about how much she hated the Pumpkins. And I was joking with her. I was like, we were into the Pumpkins in part to piss off people like you, because we knew it irritated you. We knew that us earnest alt-rock kids were annoying you to no end, and we loved doing it. So anyway, it's a long, convoluted thing. I've gone through lots of phases. I mean, obviously you have to admire his talent. Big Black was a great band, and he's produced or recorded some amazing works of art. So you have to give his due. But I also think that, like Rick Rubin, he peaked a while ago, and I don't keep up with him that much, but when I hear things, I don't like it doesn't particularly move me. And I haven't been moved by him in a long time. And also, I find latter-day on-message Steve very odd. I don't remember the Wax Tracks people being like, fuck yeah, Dennis Orr! It's weird. So I've gone, like I said, I have complicated feelings about him. So, but there he was, like, there was the guy, and this guy that, at one point in time I really disliked, and there he was, and he just kind of looked, like, sad and deflated, I don't know. And I looked at him and Ian acknowledge each other from across the room, and this kind of, Ian was sort of beckoning him over, and Steve just stood, 10 feet away, it was a very odd encounter, and then just sort of wandered off, and that was I was like, Wow, so that's Steve, huh? And that's Steve encountering his old buddy from the punk rock days, Ian. Weird. So anyway, but just the aura that, and there was talk that Iggy was going to show up at the Evens show. That would have been fucking unbelievable. Jesus Christ, I can't even imagine what that would have been like. I don't think Iggy would have gotten out of that room. I think people would have just, like, Iggy would still be in that room. People wouldn't have let him leave. So, anyway, the Stooges had kind of quasi gotten back together. That's enough about all that. But the Stooges had quasi gotten back together for 3 songs on the what is it, on the Skull Ring album. It was 2003, the Woeful Skull Ring album. And Jesus, it'll be rough reviewing that one. It's a slog. And Iggy, interestingly, seemed to see that album as something of his nadir. And the Stooges slowly but surely kind of reformed. I think a lot of people, I think post White Stripes, post, garage rock stuff, I feel like it was almost collectively willed that the Stooges get back together. I remember in '96, Iggy doing an interview with Mojo, and the plan was for the Stooges to get back together then. That they apparently were going to follow the lead of the Sex Pistols and reform. I never knew, and I mean, Iggy confirmed that this was going to happen. And then it didn't. I think it's in the Paul Trinka book that I guess Iggy and Scott had attempted to find some sort of common musical ground. I want to say in '89 in New York, that it was just the two of them. But Ron Ashton, I'm not going to explain who the Ashton brothers are. It's a Stooges review video. I would assume you would know that. Ron had been doing these shows. He had become sort of a indie darling, part of the Velvet Goldmine soundtrack, and then was doing sets of Stooges songs with Jay Mascis and Mike Watt. I think Ron kind of up and out and touring and playing with top level guys. I think that was part of the reason why Iggy wanted to play with them with the Ashton brothers as well. So it all came together. Iggy was at a low point. As Iggy was at a low point, the Ashton brothers were ascending, and they met on a Coachella stage somewhere. Talking about the Stooges is hard because I think that the Stooges, first of all, I'm going to go and say, yes, it's a relatively small body of work, but I think that it's the most potent body of work in the history of rock and roll. And I think that it's kind of my belief that the Stooges are the greatest rock and roll band ever. It's hard for me to talk about them, and it's going to be harder for me to talk about them when I talk about the 3 main albums, because to me, trying to quantify the Stooges is nearly impossible, because I think that the Stooges split the atom in such a way. I feel like the Ashton brothers had such perfect instincts and such perfect taste level, combined with Iggy, who the way that people talk about Brian Wilson as a genius or Duke Ellington or whatever, to me, Iggy is at that level. He is Picasso level, whoever you want to name, level genius. And Iggy, here's the thing that I always am in awe of with him, is that Iggy hears things and thinks of things that you haven't thought of yet. in terms of approaches to the music and aspects of the music and things to build in to the music and to the presentation. And he's thought of things that you are going to be amazed by but won't even consciously notice until 10 years later when he points it out in an interview. You know, and that's the thing. Like, you're like, fuck, that's why that's awesome. God damn it. You know, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of, Jesus, how did he think of that? My God. Like, he just, I feel like he hears everything. I feel like there's so many like levels of subtleties and nuances that he is, you know, putting together. And, yeah, I fucking revere the guy. So anyway, so I say that because I'm going to try and get it right, you know, especially because I'm going to be critiquing things about this. So I don't want to hold this up because my greasy little hands, I don't want to smudge this. I've managed to, you know, so I'll be smudging this. So anyway, this was recorded at Electrical Audio, Steve's studio, and, you know, Steve's wearing his janitor outfit, or electrician outfit, or whatever, and Mike Watt is on bass, and they one of the things I thought was one of the coolest aspects of the Stooges reunion is they brought back Steve McKay of Blow Steve! Like, that Steve McKay, fucking Funhouse Side 2 motherfucker, all-time, like, right next to King Curtis as the greatest saxophonist in the history of fucking rock and roll, Steve McKay, that guy. Like, I love that. So he's on here, and we'll be talking about that. But so they knocked this album out in a few weeks in October of 06, and then it came out in early 07. The Weirdness, and it got fucking ripped to shreds. It was awful. It was so depressing because the Stooges finally, for the first time ever, actually had like a press run. They actually went on talk shows and did, you know, there were the fawning Mojo and Uncut and Q magazine articles. Maybe not Q, who knows, but the other ones, you know, and the Ashton brothers, for the first time ever, were presented as two fucking giants of rock and roll, and it was this amazing, beautiful thing that they're like finally in the forefront. Finally, they're, you know, and because it should have been them the whole time. They should have, you know, gone 8, 10, 12 albums deep the first time. It was more than enough creativity. You know, there was so much music contained within those men that, you know, they're finally getting their due, you know? You know, it's like Skip James or Howlin' Wolf finally getting their due in the 60s. Like, it's finally happening, you know? And then at the same time, they're getting these, like, shit, snarky reviews. And, I really, really, really hated that. It really bummed me out in a very serious way. So the other thing that was weird was my idea of Fun had come out ahead of the album, and I loved it. I thought it was great, and it was a big step up from the last couple of Iggy albums. And I thought, and it was so strange because I thought, oh my God, like they did it. Like this is like they made like a single that'll like appeal to people. Like this is awesome. Like I was so, and it's like fucking fantastic. It's like real Stooges, and you know, and I remember like kind of eagerly like looking to see what people were saying about it, and it was like, like. And I couldn't, and then like snarky indie people, and I couldn't believe, you know, the Pitchforks of the world. I couldn't believe that it was, I hadn't had an experience like that. The last time I had an experience like that where I was that out of sync was when the RZA put out the first Bobby Digital album. I heard that record. I thought, oh my God, this is the masterpiece. This is what he's been building to. Holy shit, he's done it. And then it got, it's like 3-star reviews. Like, well, but this was even worse because there were like 1-star reviews of this thing, which is absolutely absurd. Because not even Skull Ring is 1 star. At times it gets close, but not, and this is leagues beyond that album. So anyway, so we shall now talk about this album. So it starts with Trollin', and just like the awesome downbeat, and it's off we go. And the first thing that hits you is that it sounds great. It sounds like really like powerful and like coming at you, and then like very quickly, like the more you listen to it and the more you listen to the rest of the album, there is a thing that they do with Ron that is, I think, a big disservice. Kind of in the same way that I feel like after what were their names? Chris Thomas and Bill Price. I feel like no one really ever knew what to do with Steve Jones after, there's the phenomenon on this record of Ron kind of soloing a lot, just sort of, he's off on the right, just kind of soloing away. I don't think certainly doesn't do this song, and certainly doesn't do doesn't do the album a lot of favors, and it doesn't serve him. It's not, a testament to his greatness, because it's just sort of, I don't know, like sonic distraction happening. But that being said, I really, really, really like this song. I've always liked this song. I've always thought it was a cool, riff rocker that had like a lot of guts, and the Ashton brother that is served incredibly well by Steve's production is, of course, Scott. This is Scott's opus. I don't know that John Cale fully knew what to do with him in 1969. They knew what to do with him on Funhouse. And then, of course, there's the sort of the debacle of the recording of the Ashton Brothers on Raw Power that is, that the album overcomes that and actually turns it into kind of its own form of awesomeness. But to hear, like, Scott with that drum sound, the Steve drum sound, and the heavily grounded bottom end is incredibly satisfying. This is truly Scott's opus, and he just plays his ass off. I mean, this is Scott's record, basically. But the song itself, I've always really liked. I remember people not liking the lyrics. But I like Iggy's weird hypersexual lyrics. I like the line about his dick turning into a tree. It's something that I can relate to. That feeling, like that, like being that into somebody, or like finding somebody that attractive. Like, I always liked that line. I always thought that was a cool line. I see your hair has energy. My dick is like, I love that. I thought it was cool. And yeah, I always really liked this song, and I always thought it was a really good opener. For some reason, Mark Prindle particularly hated the riff on this. I don't know why. I always really liked it. I thought it has a good, proper, real rock and roll stomp to it. So where I might as well now just get into this. I will talk a little bit about some of the sonic issues of this record. So I have listened to it here. This is the best. And I've listened to it on the interwebs many times, and it never sounds good. The vinyl's the best, but it has never sounded good to me. Every sort of initial, like, the band kicking in always sounds great. And then that goes away, and you wind up with, for lack of a better way of putting it, ear fatigue. And everything very quickly, other than the heavily grounded bottom end, everything very kind of quickly disappears into like just a wash of mid-range. And Steve's thing of burying the vocals doesn't do Iggy favors on Trollin. I wish Iggy was a little bit more out front. But I just wish there was something done with this sort of gray splotch, this gray splotches that just sort of make up most of what you're hearing. Now, Steve has talked about this record, where he has said that he doesn't care what anyone thinks about this record, because he got to make a Stooges record. That's great. That's great, Steve. I'm glad that you had a nice month. We listen to this. We buy this. We think about it. We feel it. We live it, live with it, or don't live it and don't live with it. So it's great that you had a nice time with your favorite band. But, this is what survives, So that's a weird thing. And then in a different interview, he talked about how Iggy mastered the record at Abbey Road, and it was after a show, and his ears were blown out, and there were decisions that he wouldn't have made. So I don't know, Steve. Shouldn't you? Like, I don't know. This is like your favorite band and shit, and it's like the greatest rock and roll band ever, and they're playing, and the Ashton brothers are amazing, and Iggy's amazing, and you've got fucking... if Dave Alexander's not going to be there, you've got fucking Mike Watt. Like, you're just going to then be indifferent? Like, you bothered putting on the jump, like, the outfit. Like, you put on the outfit. Like, I think you could turn around and express an opinion. I don't know. Why? Like, that's so weird to me. The plausible deniability of, I'm just fixing the wiring. Like, no, because you have fucking opinions about fucking everything, and you hold everybody else to the highest possible standards. But here, where you're working with the fucking Stooges, you're like indifferent and like, oh, well, I had a nice time while I was there. I don't care what other people think. Like, it's a weird way to be indifferent. And then to say, like, oh, well, Iggy mastered it, and it would have been better if, like, I don't know. They're at the mastering studio, like, that you like using. Like, I don't... Fuck yeah, Dennis Orr. So anyway, strange stuff. So then we get to the next song. Is it What You Can't Have Friends? Yeah. So one of the other big things with this record is Iggy's off-key vocals. And so You Can't Have Friends, I get why this is the second song. It's a perfectly good sort of like rock song. Especially at the time. Like, I liked the song at the time. As the years have gone by, I find it, I don't know, it hasn't sort of worn over time for me. Or it has worn over time for me. It sounds, I don't know, too obvious in a weird way of like trying to make an approachable song. I don't know. It just doesn't really work for me. It sounds like something that would have sounded... It would have been like one of the best songs, or probably the best song on Skull Ring. It's the song that the Sum 41 collaboration on that album isn't. So it would have been great on there. It's okay here. Iggy's vocals don't do it any favors. The Ashton brothers are perfectly fine. Oh, that's the other thing. So Mike Watt is on here. Mike Watt, like, Jesus, the fucking guy from the fucking Minutemen and Firehose and, like, and Dose, etc., etc. Mike, you would never know that Mike Watt's here. He's just like invisible, because he unfortunately also just sort of gets eaten up in the eternal mid range of this record. So he's just sort of swallowed up, and I don't really know what he's doing on this record. He's awesome, so I assume he's doing something awesome, and he certainly delivered live, but I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you how he sounds on this record. I truly don't know. So that's, I will say, when Iggy does go off key on "Baby, but I can't be" on the chorus, that works, and I like that. Other than that, though, yeah, it's an okay song. However, things get much, much, much better with the next song, ATM. I think that ATM is proper Stooges. First of all, the band hits a fucking groove. They sound awesome. Like, the Ashton Brothers are so locked in and so playing as one and sound so goddamn good together. Also, the guitar tone's a little sharper, which does some favors, because it is a bit more sonically defined. And then there's Iggy, who sounds awesome and sounds, he's the great rock and roll singer that he is. One of the very best that ever lived. This is that guy. It is an awesome vocal performance. Kind of a blues setup with the lyric, with the repeating of lines. But that's the thing. I feel like there's elements of this, like on Trollin', not so much on You Can't Have Friends, but on Trollin' and on ATM, it almost feels like Iggy was approaching it conceptually like the guy from 1969 and No Fun and I Want to Be Your Dog, that guy grown up, but it's him all these years later, right? And I think this is the single best song of Iggy really inhabiting that, and this just sort of like weird late in the day epilogue to the bored, like, Midwest weirdo of the first Stooges album. The other thing is the more minimal lyric also evokes the genius of the first record. And Iggy's 15 words or less hyper minimal lyrics on that first record is one of the great creative decisions in the history, of rock and roll. And his lines here and the way that he sings them are, again, sharp. And he's seen it all, he's done it all, he's been there, and he's sort of not afraid. He's unafraid to tell you about it. And I respect the hell out of that. And, the lyric about, the leaders of rock don't rock. Oh, it's true then, but holy shit, is it going to get worse? My God. Wow. And, yeah, boy. If it bothered him then, I don't know. Imagine now. And, the other thing about that song, about the Stooges fight poverty in secret, I think that you could hear this and Trollin' and think that there's a certain amount of sort of old school rock and roll braggadocio. I actually hear ATM differently, because, and I don't want to get too far into this, but I was privy to some very, very, very out of the range of public interest or public record info about Iggy, with some of the stuff that he did with his money, especially when he started doing commercials and having songs in commercials and all that sort of stuff that you'd rather not see. But I was, like I said, I was privy to some sort of confidential information, and Iggy did some really cool stuff with his money. And so the Stooges fight poverty in secret actually is basically true. And when I found out this information, which was many, many years after this record came out, I was like, oh, wow, the Stooges do fight poverty in secret. That ain't bullshit, you know. And that's not puffery. That's not, that's not bullshit, and that's not him talking himself up. That's not ego. So I love ATM, and then we get to my idea of fun. Nihilistic lyrics, lyrics of somebody at the end of their rope. It works. I think Iggy sounds great. I've always loved this song, and it is taken at kind of like a frightening pace. And the Ashton brothers, I mean, this is the fucking Stooges. These are the fucking guys that made Funhouse. Like that just the fucking bracing motion of it. How could you not like this? Like, if you like rock and roll at all, how could you not be into this? Like, what the fuck? It's so like it like Ron's riffing and Scott, oh my god, Scott plays like his life depends on it. And the thing about Scott, and part of, again, one of the many components of the genius of the Stooges, there's a lot of components to it, is all the dynamics. Like the when he really leans in on things, his slight tempo shifts, just it's perfect. It's a symphony of fucking nuance, his drums, but also, well, pardon the phrase, but no pun intended, but of raw power. It is both. It is hyper artistic and hyper ultimate raw power. It's awesome, and Ron is incredible on it, and lets loose a fucking incredible solo that unfortunately is again sort of weirdly swallowed up by the gray splotches of the mid-range. Like, I don't understand the not creating sonic space for this. Like, I just don't get it. Like, yes, you have this incredible drum sound, but then what's going on when everything else sort of gets sort of swallowed up, and it's just sort of a melange. It's very, very, very frustrating. I would love to hear this remixed. I think it would be that much more dynamic. And I think, and maybe that's why people didn't like it or didn't flock to it. I don't know, but I mean, if you're listening, the band is just fucking incredible on it, and Iggy's great on it, So again, I've always loved this song. It's great rock and roll. Like, I don't know how you couldn't like it, So at this point, you're coming off two really strong songs. You've got a good intro, decent second song, but then like two really strong songs. So like we're heading somewhere, we're building somewhere. And I remember the first time listening to this being like really like wow, they're fucking doing it, and Lord knows it was better than the songs on Skull Ring. I mean, fuck. So where does it go from here? Well, it goes into the title track, The Weirdness. And this is where my frustration with the production really, really comes in. So there's some stuff in the Paul Trinka book about the Stooges rehearsing. And so for those of you who don't know, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but the Stooges started off as a noise band. I mean, it was like total chaos. It was, a complete freak out avant-garde band. And they became a rock and roll band. So there was always that side of them, and there was always that side of them that was really into pure sonic exploration, and what these instruments could do. And indeed, initially, for their first however many months as a band, their initial concerts, they actually built their own instruments. But anyway, jump forward decades later, and Iggy Scott would sit at like a toy drum set, and one of them would play like a xylophone. Like they would play like they would rehearse on like kids like play school kids like plastic kids toys in Iggy's house in Florida, which is amazing. And it's amazing that that was like that they were super cool, like to do that, that they were that open, that they went with that, you know. I love that. I mean, reading that about them, like in a way, didn't surprise me, but it was also like, fuck, that's awesome. Like that's the Stooges. Like, you know, that's that's why they're the Stooges. You know, like who the hell else is gonna do that? You know, especially that, you know, that many years later. I just was so impressed with that story. Really, really, I wish it was recorded. I would love to hear that stuff. So, you know, they had a propensity for that. And so anyway, I say all that because there are moments on this record that allude to the fact that the Stooges, on one hand, are the greatest rock and roll band ever, but on the other hand, they are also these sort of, I don't know, sonic explorers of the unknown, and are willing to, you know, to paraphrase some Stooges slang, let one go. So Ron is doing some, I don't know if it's the EBO, but so it's kind of like a 50s ballad. It almost sort of splits the difference between blues, a 50s ballad, and like French pop, like 60s French pop. And again, Scott, this is why Scott could very well be my favorite drummer ever, maybe. I'm a really big Scott Ashton fan. And boy, does he sound good. He'll notice a trend. So you know, it's sort of this perfect sort of slow gallop, and Ron is doing some really beautiful EBO stuff, and I feel like, and then there's Iggy, and the song is sort of you know, I don't fit in these times, and laments of the modern world, but there's a deep intimacy and sensuality to Iggy's vocal performance. It's a beautiful vocal performance. It's a beautiful croon, and it's all in his low register, and he sounds amazing. And yet, you have to listen really hard to hear it, because it's all just, again, everything's just sort of swallowed up. And I feel like if they had I'm just going to use the word, a less indifferent producer, or somebody who really wanted to cultivate sounds, like this song is such a missed opportunity, because Iggy's vocal should be, first of all, louder, and, you know, it should really be like, you know, you shouldn't have to like listen to hear how awesome it is. It should be coming out at you, you know? And Ron, I mean, that should have been, you know, like the end of, what's the, Rub Every Muscle by Half Japanese, with the saxophones just sort of playing off each other. There's like that 25 seconds or whatever there's gorgeous sort of sound coming out of the horns. Like that should have been like Ron's guitars. Like it should have been like a massed fucking choir of long, droning, rolling tones, you know, almost like somewhere between the Kinks' See My Friends and the end of Rub Every Muscle or something. Like, you know, Ron's playing cool parts, but like I feel like there's so much more that could have been done with it. If Tony Visconti was producing this, like, oh my God, like what the hell would he have done with that? You know, it's really frustrating. Also, Steve McKay sort of makes a cameo in I guess the bridge or the middle part, which is sort of wasted. It's kind of a wasted cameo. I feel like they hadn't really worked out quite exactly what they wanted to do with him. So he just sort of shows up and plays like a very kind of like, I don't know, it sounds like he just was playing it for the very first time or something. I don't know. So it just, I feel like there's so much more that could have been done with this because it's there. It's very frustrating. It's there, and yet it's not there. And then we go into Free and Freaky. So Mark Prindle didn't like the riff of Trollin', but he liked the riff of Free and Freaky. I have absolutely no idea. Not Iggy's greatest lyrics. It's overwritten, and it also doesn't have that much to say, both kind of at the same time. Brendan Benson is on here singing vocals, doing harmonies for some reason. I'll be honest, I never really got the Brendan Benson thing. Jack White was pre-Raconteurs. Jack White used to evangelize about him pretty intensely. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, this guy's got to be, this is going to be amazing. And it wasn't, it just wasn't. And so I never really, he's not bad. I just never really I never got why it was a thing. And his, he could be there. It could be fucking anybody, really. I don't know. I'm not really sure what the point was. And that's, the Ashton brothers do what they can with the song, but it just sort of comes and goes. And it's kind of a non-committal side ender. So the album has now sort of taken a weird slope. It's very weird sequencing that you would end it with this song that doesn't really do all that much. And yet, like I said, it's still somehow overwritten. So on that kind of somewhat sort of note, we flip the record over. So side 2 picks up where side 1 left off, with a not terribly inspiring riff rocker. It's called Greedy Awful People. Kind of like Free and Freaky. It's social commentary of some sort. I don't disagree with what Iggy's saying, but and then there's not really much to it musically. Again, Ron and Scott do their best. God only knows what the hell Mike Watt's doing. I truly don't have that much to say about it. And then we get to the next song. Is the next song no? Okay. So yeah, it's funny because in my mind I rarely listen to this album in sequence, so I flip songs around. So anyway, so the next song though is She Took My Money. And She Took My Money. So whereas, Greedy Awful People and Free and Freaky have the kind of somewhat slack Iggy vocal stylings of You Can't Have Friends. She Took My Money. The band hits a groove. It's almost like a, it's almost like a 50s or R&B groove, or almost sort of like some of the stuff on Soldier, that sort of dog food loco mosquito thing. This song, which is perfect because this song could have been written by Lieber and Stoller. Like, this could have been done by the Coasters. I fucking love this song. And it hits this weird groove that, like, the brothers know exactly what to do with it. Iggy sounds fucking great. He sounds weird and demented and, like, I don't know. He sounds like a buzzing insect. He sounds great. The lyrics are hilarious, and it has such a, like, just kind of fuck it, like, what the hell, ne'er-do-well sort of vibe, and everybody's like in on it, and it's like the song feels dirtier and sleazier than it actually is, but that's part of what's so awesome about it. It feels like it feels like, you know, it feels sleazy, but you're in on the laugh, and it's very tongue in cheek, but awesome in like in such a wonderful rock and roll way. It's my second favorite thing that Steve McKay does, because Steve just kind of joins right in, again adding to that sort of 50s hot house vibe. It's awesome, and something happens on the second half of the song, and that is the band sort of just takes over, and it's not about the song anymore. They're just now playing music, and it's all of a sudden like they sort of like stretch out and come into their own, and they're like comfortable, and like you hear Iggy like getting really into it, and because they recorded this album like live on the floor, like they did it relatively close to how they had done Funhouse. And it has just groove and attitude, and it's you know, just funny and knowing and smart and coy and smartass and all these things at once. It's a fantastic song and a fantastic performance. And again, you really get this. This is where you get the sense these are the guys. These are the Dance of Romance guys. These are the guys that made Funhouse. These are the guys. This is what a great rock and roll band does at like when like it fucking kicks in and it's working. So. You know, do I wish that there was more sonic definition to it? Oh yeah. You know, but I don't know. Maybe Steve was distracted that day. No, I'm kidding, you know. No, I'm not. So then we get to, so then the next song is The End of Christianity. And we're kind of back to the, I guess, sure, sort of social commentary of Greedy Awful People and Free and Freaky. I don't know. This is where Iggy's off-key vocals do bug me. Yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand why he's not hitting the notes, because there are points, like I said, there are moments where he doesn't hit notes on this where it works. He does it to great effect, like on Zombie Birdhouse, and like Iggy knows what he's doing with his voice. I talk a lot about that in Zombie Birdhouse. Talk a lot about that on Soldier and New Values, for that matter. You know, the voice is the instrument with him, and he's a master of control, and I just don't understand what's happening here with him. Ron does some beautiful stuff. Scott, of course, is great, but Ron is starting to edge into some more kind of freeform sonic exploration stuff. Again, I wish there was more that was done with it. I wish it was more legible. But that being said, I just don't know that the song is good enough to sustain it. Kind of like She Took My Money, the band sort of just commandeers everything and sort of goes off a little while. But again, it doesn't it doesn't sort of cohere into anything, and the sort of indifference of the gray splotches of the infinite mid-range sort of swallow up what possibilities there could have been. I almost wish it was maybe like a longer take. I wish there was a different vocal take. I wish it was a different vocal take. I wish maybe it needed to be longer and they just sort of go off and play, and I don't know. But it, like I said, it does, I don't really care too much for as it is on the record, and especially coming after She Took My Money, which is genuinely fun. It just when it's starting to sort of build momentum, then it kind of stops, and then we're right back to momentum again. So I normally skip into Christianity. I go straight from She Took My Money to the next song, Mexican Guy. They hit a hard fucking Bo Diddley 1969 groove. The song is actually mixed differently. They actually put Ron's guitar somewhere else. They actually create like a sound stage, like an actual like production. It's not just in different default settings that were decided like an hour into day one and never touched again. So that's really exciting. I mean, that's like a production, and like, ooh, imagine that. You know, the zipper on the janitor outfit spontaneously moved. So anyway, buttons were popping open. So anyway, the pocket protector jumped out. Who knows? Wilder things have happened. I'm assuming the glasses were like, So anyway, like the X-ray specs fucking thing. Anyway, so Mexican guy, again, like the fucking band hits it, and Iggy does something really interesting lyrically, which is, as I said on a few songs on side one, I felt like he was trying to sort of channel the idea and the guise of the very first album. Here, he actually like talks about LA in the mid '70s from like when the Stooges broke up. It's really interesting. It's a really cool lyrical device. He does great. He sounds great. It is, it's almost rapped. It's a sort of talk singing, but he sounds fucking great and tough and smart and awesome, and the great rock and roller that he is, and the band just absolutely nails it. They know exactly what to do, and Ron, again, is playing beautiful, amazing stuff, and I just sort of like want more of it, because like, he's playing with textures and just doing wonderful, cool things, and being the imaginative genius that he is in the context of art is, right? The constant, present, right? And it's a really, really cool song. I think that there are people who don't. Again, this was another song where some people didn't like the lyrics because he referenced Dr. Phil, but don't be fucking stupid. Like, hear it in context. It's cool. It's a really good set of lyrics, and it's delivered really cool. And the band nails that groove hard, and you can hear Iggy like getting into it, and you can hear like how much he loves what these guys do, and it's just really endearing. And it's another really, really cool moment where they're just sort of playing music, and you just want so much more of that, because then we go into another song. This is the weakest song on the record, but Passing Cloud. I think I really don't have that much to say about Passing Cloud. I've tried periodically over the years. I think it would have been an interesting song. It would have been an interesting experiment, maybe on like Avenue B. I really like that record. I'll eventually be reviewing it, but it just doesn't work here, and it doesn't work in this context, and it doesn't. I just don't think that it works for the Stooges. And Ron tries to do a lot. Ron is like really trying to pump life into this thing, and really pushing everything he has into it. Scott, like when they come out of the, when they go back into the verses, like Scott is doing everything he can to pump life into this thing. It just doesn't really work. I don't know if it's the song or the arrangement where it's weak. I wonder if it was arranged differently, if it could be good. But it just doesn't work, and it really doesn't work on side two. And it doesn't work this late into the record either. It really doesn't do side two any favors. And I wish I had more to say about it than that. I wish I liked it more. Because the brothers are fantastic on it, they're doing everything they can. But then the album careens very quickly to its final song, and that is, of course, I'm Fried. That is the name of this thing, right? Jesus. I'm Fried. And so it's 3 minutes, it's 3:45, I think. Is that right? Yeah. 3:44. And this is the song that Free and Freaky and Greedy Awful People failed to be. It's just a modern life sucks, I'm burnt, and it's speedy and fast and hard. The band sounds awesome. Scott is awesome, and then again, as with the other two really great songs on side two, again, it sort of opens up again. You like I said, you really wished for more of these, or that it was even more developed, or one of these maybe they really made like 7 or 8 minutes and really like went for it. Because when that does happen, this is the last album that Ron Asheton made, and this giant of rock and roll. He was gone within a couple of years of having made the album, and this is the last song on the last record that Ron Asheton made. And the last song on the last record that Ron Asheton made, he totally takes over. And this is his best playing. And him and Steve Mackay, this is Steve Mackay's best playing on the record. And Steve, very briefly, again, you just wish there was so much more of this. Steve becomes the Blow Steve of Funhouse. He that Steve is now here and full on, and the band is playing like, a phrase I use a lot, playing within an inch of their lives, and Ron and Steve just blend together. And again, I wish it wasn't all swallowed up by the gray splotches of the mid-range. I wish there was more sonic definition, because you can hear that this is amazing, and yet, you also feel like you're not hearing everything that's really there. It does not have the clarity that like Funhouse has, or the first album even. But it is amazing. I mean, Ron is just, to use the phrase, he plays a blinder. I mean, and it's just, but before we even get to that, I mean, it's just such a cool riff rock song. Iggy sounds great. It's, again, funny, smart, cool, it's everything you want, but then it goes to that other place. And that's how the album ends, and that's the last album that Ron ever made. If you have the CD, that is how it ends. But I don't just have the CD, goddammit, and I'm not just streaming it. I got the vinyl version. And what's this? There's a second record in here. That's right. So, because this is Rich Talks Records, and this is a record, and my name is Rich, we're going to talk about side 3. We are going to talk about songs I bet a lot of you have never heard. So we we take the album off, and then we put side 3 on, and away we go. So, side 3. So these are the vinyl only exclusive tracks. And so I'm going to be that asshole that basically says that this is the best run of music on this album. Yeah, I'm totally going to do that. It is what it is. It's not because they're exclusive vinyl only tracks that you can't find anywhere else. It has nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with my experience as a listener, and from the first time I heard these back in 2007 till now, it is inexplicable. It is maybe Bob Dylan in the 80s level. Why didn't you use this level of inexplicable? So especially if you're a fan of the Stooges, I don't know how you couldn't love these songs. I don't know how you couldn't consider this some of the very best music. And I don't know how you can't then, the inevitable, you go and you kind of make your own sequence of it, So, by the way, if you can find the vinyl, I really do recommend it. It is the best way to hear this record. It's a weird sounding album. It's a wonky sounding album. But but this is the best way to hear it. I will say, not, I'm not being a snob. Again, experience as a listener, it's the least ear fatigue, I think. I mean, it's still, I would love a remix. I would love somebody else to come in and push some knobs and faders around. But anyway, we have the first song. So it's what, 4 songs? Yeah. So it's 4 songs, and it opens with, okay, I'll say it, the single best thing on any of this, a little over 6-minute dirge, flippertastic pace, O Solo Mio. It is a, Jesus Christ, it is a roiling pace, slow but intense. Ron knows exactly what to do with it. You know, Ron plays it. Ron can lay the sludge down better than anyone, and you know, and Scott just keeps, you know, like lava. It just keeps flowing like lava. Beautiful playing, and then you have Iggy delivering another sort of state of modern living is doing to him and his mind and his sensitivities, but it is and weirdly like humanistic, like a weirdly humanistic statement. It's fucking outstanding. I feel like this song, like, this is the song that there are sort of exists in like the cracks in some of the stuff on Naughty Little Doggy, or like there's or maybe even a little of American Caesar. It's probably borne out a bit more on Avenue B, but like but then like really hides in the back alleys of Beat 'em Up or Skull Ring. Like it's just all out in the forefront here. It's exposed, and it's so real. And Iggy's performance, I mean, I just don't understand it, because like Iggy hits the highest, hardest notes he hits on this whole thing. It's one of the best vocal performances I think that he ever recorded, certainly in his later years. It's fucking amazing. It's dramatic. It's intense. It's O Solo Mio. It's real. And he's reacting off the band, and they're reacting off of him, and it is a visceral charge that you feel, and you can feel from them. It's magnificent. It's inexplicable that it's not on the album. It boggles the mind. There is a vinyl rip of these on YouTube, so you can hear these. Awesome that the guy did it. God bless him. I will say, not the highest quality. Sorry. So it doesn't fully convey the majesty and intensity. Like you can hear how awesome it is, but you already have to hear through some things with this record anyway. So to have to hear through like that, you know, it's like a vinyl rip. It's another layer then that you have to, like, you know. So again, if you can find some high quality downloads of this stuff, like, Jesus Christ, seek it out. I mean, again, especially if you love the Stooges, this is the last stuff that Ron Asheton ever recorded. Like, honor the fucking legacy of the fucking man, you know? Like, I'm telling you, if you take my opinion at all seriously, I'm telling you, seek it out. It is worth your time. I would not waste your time. I would not send you scuttling around the internet to find this if I did not think it was worth your time. The next song is Claustrophobia, which is a really, really cool, almost like mid-'80s SST, or I don't know, maybe even like something like the Weirdos would have done. Like it's such a I said that Iggy sounded like an insect earlier on this. Like it's another weird insect buzzing fly performance. It's it's strange. Maybe I guess maybe Lux Interior style. But it's a great, cool little punk rock song, and the fact that they can just throw this out, like that they can just like write a song that good, that it's kind of like better than anybody else's, like better than any other sort of punk band. You know, like it speaks to their talent level. It speaks to their awesomeness. It's awesome rock and roll. I have no idea why he wouldn't have put this on the record. It's fun, it's fast, it's cool, it's weird, it's awesome. It's, you know, there's not much to say about it than that, you know? So yeah, so that's Claustrophobia. Again, it's 10,000 times better than Free and Freaky. And then we have a delightful surprise. Now, if you know, I just got done doing the Stones videos, and you know, if you've traveled in classic rock circles, you know that a good old fashioned question is, who did I Want to Be Your Man better, Beatles or the Stones? The answer is the Stooges. The Stooges do the best version of I Want to Be Your Man. That's right. The Stooges cover I Want to Be Your Man. They kind of basically use the the Stones arrangement as the template, and kind of go off from there. It's at jet speed, like Scott playing lightning charged locomotive rhythms. Ron sounds fucking awesome. It is a magnificent cover, and again, kind of like I alluded to some of the better things on side two, it just sort of goes off and they're just playing, and again, it is so wonderful, and it is such a truly beautiful thing to behold. The fucking masters, like the best in the world at this, the best in the world. There they are, you know? You get these sort of final moments with the best in the world. It's just such a cool cover, and Iggy starts extemporizing lyrics towards it. It's just fucking awesome. It's like, it's awesome rock and roll. It's awesome. And that's kind of one of the things I like with, like, She Took My Money, and like, it's cool, like, having these older guys sort of take on these different attitudes, and like, but they're playing that hard and that awesome. And that's one of the things that I love about this. Like, it's just, it's incredibly, I don't know, inspirational to just hear these guys who truly have been through everything, and just in a room, just fucking playing, you know? It's magnificent. And then the final song is, of the three, probably the least. I mean, there's no topping O Solo Mio, for fuck's sake. That's the top. But it ends with the Sounds of Leather, which is basically, Sounds of Leather is it could have been on New Values. It's got that kind of almost new wavy kind of vibe, but also that kind of Stonesy rhythm to it. If you like New Values, I cannot imagine that you would dislike this song. It's a beautiful, if I'm hearing it correctly, it's a beautiful tribute to, you know, it's a song about music, and it's a song about love of music, and it's just it's not necessarily a major song, but it's a great and beautiful song that has a lightness of touch, a very different sound from the rest of the record. Which you want, because it's, you know, the gray splotches are a little, I don't know. I maybe, when you're focused on getting your janitor outfit, like making sure there's no like stains on it or something. I don't know. So anyway, like if the pocket protector, like if the ink bleeds out, I mean, it's a nightmare, right? So it's nice to have something that sounds a little different and is a little more open and brighter. and it's a great song, and that's it. So that's how it ends. Though my version is really exclusive, because that's just side 3, right? So side 4 is blank, right? There's no, it's just bonus tracks on side 3. My version, though, is really cool. Check this out. This is very rare. This is vinyl community shit right here. Check this out. Side 4 is a bonus version. They redid We Will Fall, and did the John Cage non-sonic mix. So that's pretty cool. I think this is an edition, one of one. So yeah, so this is my version. Technically, is a double album then, because I've got this cool. So anyway, did I mention that it's episode 19, baby? So anyway, I by the way, this would have been my handwriting. This would have been my handwriting from 2000, back in 2007. Just being silly, as I have a tendency to be. So that's it. That's the weirdness. If this video has displeased you so far, I apologize for not fawning over the Stooges enough and fawning over the genius of them. Stick with me though, because eventually I will do the main Stooges albums, and I don't have a critical word about any of those, basically. And then the next one, Ready to Die, I'm a very big fan of. So you'll hear me say lots of things about that. If you think I'm too down on them here, just wait. You'll eventually be super cool about it. So anyway, we'll wrap this up with the 2 encounters of Steve in a room. So we had the first one, and now. So in 2007, I had a terrible migraine, and I was really in pain. And in 2007 was kind of a weird time for me. The end of the final years of the 2000s. I was a very manic person. That was the year that I turned 30, and the early years of my 30s were manic, strange times, and did not sleep very much, and my hands were constantly shaking, and that's a lot of mania, a lot of staying up very late, a time of mania, and seeing how far I could push myself into mania. The downside of that then is that I would get these horrible migraines that would last for days. So anyway, so I had a migraine, but it was the Stooges, and we had to go see them. So the album had been out for, I don't know, a month or something, maybe, I forget. And so duly went to go see the Stooges, and one of the people in the crowd the opening act was Shellac, and so there's Steve. Alas and alack, there is Steve. And had they put out, was it the excellent Italian Greyhound record, or did that come late? I feel like it was the Greyhound record. But I was near a Shellac fan in the crowd, and was a big, I think is his name Todd Trainer, the bass player, big Todd Trainer fan, and was like, you won't believe how amazing Todd Trainer is. Like, oh my God, he's gonna blow your mind. So I was like, cool. I have a weird thing in life. I don't know why this is. Either people won't speak to me or come anywhere near me. When I was in college and on the train and rush hour, I used to carry a knife, and I'd be sitting there flicking the blade in and out absentmindedly, staring out the window, having amazing poetical insights and thoughts flash before my eyes, right? And it'd be packed, sardines, and yet I would have an empty seat. No one would come anywhere near me. And I've had lots of that in life. But then there's this other weird thing that happens with me. I don't know why this is. But people like decide that they're my best friend. So like, and at concerts and shit, like, it's really weird. And I'm pretty short, and for some reason, tall people really like hugging me. Or picking me up. For some reason, tall people enjoy, especially when I was. I mean, now that I'm, overweight, that doesn't happen, of course. But when I was, tipping the scales at 127. Guys were constantly picking me up. I never knew what that was about, like all of a sudden I'm up off the ground, and inebriated people for some reason seem to decide that I'm their best friend. So that happened at the Stooges show. There were some people who were really, as they say, feeling no pain, and so the very talkative and very like, there was a lot of excitement in the room about seeing the Stooges, as of course, but Shellac came out. They were the opening act, and I have heard from years later, people have told me about this show, not knowing that I was at the show, and they have said Shellac got booed off the stage. Now, I don't think that's true, because I believe that Shellac finished their set. I remember them being up there for 45 minutes. So I don't think that they cut their set short. They did, however, get booed a hell of a lot. So much so that they interrupted the set and came out and like were confronting the audience. And this is in their hometown, and the audience was not having them. And it was this very weird, it was almost like the feeling of the Stooges to Shellac was almost like, and I like some Shellac. I have no axe to grind with any of that stuff. And I mean, I like all three of Steve's bands, like, so it's, I own a bunch of records by the guy. So, I mean, I don't want to come off like, meh. But that, on that night, on that very stage, it's kind of like what I mentioned in the Stones videos about Jay Weidner to Leon Vitale. It was this sort of like, Shellac came out with like all this bluster and, all their weird, goofy shit of making airplane noises and running around and doing like a 6-minute fucking drum break and shit. And and it was so weird because it was just sort of like nothing. And people like just were not interested. And it just sort of like all like the sum of their ideas was just kind of like boop. Like, it was just sort of nothing. It was really weird. And it was strange to just see how kind of, like, I just remember having the sense of, like, no one's ever going to remember this band. Like, maybe some indie people will, but, like thinking about the fact that the Stooges were going to come on stage and the devotion and intensity of the audience and about my feelings about them and a lot of other people's feelings about them. I just remember thinking, like, Shellac just seemed so tiny. And what they were singing about and what they were about and their ideas, all of it just seemed so minute in comparison. And it really was like Shellac was a light bulb and the Stooges are the sun. And then the Stooges, and they just sort of went away. Like, I barely remember the show other than people thought they were a fucking joke. That's all that I remember. And then the Stooges came on, and the Stooges were so good that my migraine went away. Like, legit. Now, granted, I had taken medication like 2 hours before the show, but it still hadn't really kicked in. The Stooges took away my migraine. The drunken people behind me. The one guy, yet another person much taller than me, grabbing me and like, yeah, you and me, we're the only ones who get it, man. You and me, we're moving to Detroit tonight. You know, there was a lot of that. It was that kind of show. It was that. It brought that out in people. A lot of merriment. Iggy was fucking unbelievable. Iggy, the stories that like Henry Rollins tells of like Iggy leaping up on top of Marshall Stacks in a single bound, that happened. Iggy fucking riding the Marshall Stacks and like the roadies holding onto it. Like all the stuff from that Henry Rollins story, all of that was true. I watched all of that happen. And Iggy, when Rollins says Iggy is like a gazelle, he was like a gazelle, and bounding across the stage. It never fucking ended. They did the songs from Skull Ring. They did stuff from the Weirdness. All of it sounded amazing. They did about half and half of Funhouse to the first album. All of it was incredible. It never let up. They never let up. They were awesome and perfect the entire time. And Mike Watt fit in beautifully. He was an important contributor to what was happening. So, you know, and I got to see Ron Ashton. I got to see like one of the greatest guitar players in the entire history of rock and roll. Like I got to witness that. And he was amazing. And I will say this too. Ron did things on stage that I don't think, like Pete Townsend talked about this in relation to Jimi Hendrix, that there was music that you couldn't hear because in terms of like recording, like there's stuff that happens in the room and harmonics that get created as the sound bounces around. And I got to experience that. So yes, it wasn't the Grandy Ballroom in 68 with whatever, but on the other hand, I got to experience that, and there was stuff in Ron's playing that was like 100 times beyond. In the moment, it was like 100 times beyond anything you hear on the records or on the Funhouse Sessions box set. You've got the volume jacked up, and you're like in the full craziness of that. Like, this was beyond that, you know, and it really was. It felt like flight. It felt like you weren't attached to the ground. It really did. It felt like flight. They took my migraine away. The Stooges cured me of my migraine. They were absolutely fucking incredible. And those were the days of MySpace. And I just remember like being on MySpace the next day when whatever it was like an Iggy group or a Stooges thing. I forget what it was now. But it was just these people like, you know, it was like college kids and shit. Like, everybody was just like in awe. Like nobody could believe that was what we saw and heard and all experienced. It was fucking incredible. And I'm very, very fortunate to have seen that. I'm very, 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 very fortunate, truly. Greatest rock and roll band that ever lived. I don't know. You know. And so, you know, are there some strange editing decisions in terms of what material was included? Yeah. Do I wish that they had been encouraged to play a little bit more freely as a band? Yeah. You know, do I wish that there maybe was a little bit more attentiveness to the, you know, to the stereo picture and all that? Yeah. But still, there is a lot to like on this album. There's a lot to appreciate on this album. Go certainly check out O Solo Mio. Well, check out all four of them. They're all worth your time. But definitely O Solo Mio and I Want to Be Your Man. You know, it's magnificent stuff. It's the real Stooges, you know. And there are some great songs on here. So, you know, and you can kind of make your own sequence. And yeah. So, you know, and Scott, you know, Scott is pretty superhuman. So yeah, so I think that about wraps things up here. I hope you've enjoyed this. And the next video will be Ready to Die. And that's where James Williamson comes back. And, be filming that soon enough. But this was it was a rainy Monday night, and this is a perfect album to talk about on a rainy Monday night. So with that, I will be signing off. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And let me know what you think of this record. I'd be curious to hear different opinions about this, especially if you're super into this album. I'd be really fascinated. So, see you in the next video. Bye.